Have you ever wanted a portable electric skateboard that wasn't stiff as a plank? The newly arrived Gladius from OMW might be your answer. In this review, I'll go over everything the Gladius has to offer and see if it is what it claims to be. Let's get started. Here's a list of the specs. The battery on the Gladius is actually fairly large. A 14S 2-piece setup using Samsung 50S cells offering 504 watt-hours. I'd also like to point out that it seems to be sharing the same ESC, motors, and battery from the Lancer. The Gladius is marketed as a more portable board because it's shorter than your average street board, but I wouldn't place it in the short board category. The length tip to tail comes out to roughly 35.8 inches. Here's what it looks like compared to my Calvary and my Mini 2S, which is a true short board at 29.5 inches in length. I would say it's closer in size to something like the Meepo Flow or Onsra Challenger. The underside battery enclosure is split into different sections, allowing a good amount of flex. The enclosure itself is actually fairly thin given how big the battery is, which keeps the Gladius looking trimmed and sleek. The styling in general is actually pretty good overall. There are 4 different variants you can choose from, offering different grip tape designs along with truck and handle colors. I went with Ember and I think it looks great in person. On top of that, you can choose to have a custom design or text engraved into the handle like I've done here. The overall shape of the deck is somewhat unique. There's a standard W concave shape along most of the surface, but then on the front and the back has a step-up section. It's fairly wide with 9.8 inches at its widest point. For me, the concave feels fairly mild, prioritizing comfort over that locked-in feeling. The step-ups are good though, since I have something I can push up against both front and back. Attached on the rear is this special metal kicktail that doubles as a pole handle. Now about this kicktail, while it is a metal piece attached to the deck, it's actually quite functional. However, due to the length of the Gladius, lifting the front took some practice. Putting my foot as far back as possible like this is what helped me the most. When you do figure out how to lift on command, it becomes amazing for hopping over those gaps in the road. Also, you can use your kicktail to assist in dead-end situations without having to do a board resituate. Learn to use the Gladius kicktail and riding will become so much more rewarding. The Gladius is designed to be more comfortable than your typical stiff shortboard, and overall it delivers. The longer deck was likely necessary to make the flex work. The foam grip tape and the mad wheels also contribute to dampening the ride. Compared to riding my Mini 2, it's a very significant difference. It's still going to be awful on those high vibration paths, but for a board this size, the ride is much more bearable than using a stiff shortboard. By default, the Gladius comes with only the brake light as standard. The first light add-on are these headlights for the front. Lights are turned on or off by pressing the power button twice. These are bright and do good for their positioning. I still use my wrist light, but it's nice for more visibility for night rides. The second add-on are these LEDs that offer a unique underglow. Holding the brake blinks red, and accelerating does a motion effect. You can cycle through different colors by hitting the brake 3 times. It's a nice extra option. I am a big fan of having lights integrated on boards rather than having to use custom DIY solutions. Though one day I would like to see OMW build an integrated edge light of some kind into their boards. The wheels offered are either the 105 Mad wheels or the new 92mm Mad Minis. Mine came equipped with the 105s, and I have not tried the 92s yet. I may take a look at those in a future video. If you watch my previous videos, you know that the 105s are my favorite street wheels overall. It's a no-brainer to go with the 105s on the Gladius. Since it is a belt drive, you could also try experimenting with other wheels. As I said earlier with how the Gladius is designed, I do not consider it to be a shortboard since it is nearly 36 inches in length. It's also fairly heavy, coming in at 24 pounds. Doing the gym locker test, it unfortunately does not fit mine. It probably could though if I removed the kicktail handle. When it comes to carrying around, there's some different options. Grabbing by the front truck is going to be awkward since it's not going to clear the ground. This also obviously applies when lifting with the handle. Side carrying isn't bad because the battery enclosure is fairly flat, so that's a decent option. But I find the best way is to simply pull from the handle and let the front wheels roll on the ground. The only issue with that method is I sometimes kick the board when walking. The charger is fairly chunky, weighing in at roughly 2 pounds. It may be annoying to carry this around, so I would argue this takes points away from portability. However, doing a full battery charge test, it really only takes 2.5 hours to charge as advertised. Now, as for how powerful the Gladius is, let's do a test at this hill I used previously for the Calvary. The hill has an incline of almost 10 degrees. Going up the hill at max throttle, I could only get it to 17 miles per hour before reaching the crest at the top. In comparison, the Calvary with the 7-inch tires was able to get 25. It would be nice if there was a little more power considering this is a 14S battery setup, but I would by no means say the Gladius is weak. I just seem to notice it most on the hills, but it still tackles them reasonably well. This is just something to consider if power is a priority for you. The remote is the same basic Hobbywing remote commonly used in other boards. 4 speed modes, throttle and braking roller on top, etc. I did, however, see that OMW is working on a new special colorized remote for their boards. At the time of this video, though, it does not seem to exist yet. So if you want something more than the basic remote, keep your eyes open for this. The 8.5-inch RKP trucks keep it stable at high speeds. I never had any wobble issues at 30 miles per hour. The bushing setup is 90A in the front and 95A in the rear. Now these are apparently supposed to be 0.7-inch barrels for all 4, but upon inspection, the board sides seem to be a little deformed. I never tightened down the kingpin nuts too, only loosened. So, after talking with Riptide Sports, it seemed to make sense to go with some 0.65-inch CX tall crank barrels because using 0.7 inches seemed too high. I went with 90A in the front using flat washers and 93 in the back using cup washers. Sure enough, this change livened up the board and prevented squishing the bushings with more kingpin room. The stock bushings do their job, but I would recommend changing them out for Riptides. Thanks to the big battery, the range goes far on the Gladius. Being 180 pounds and on a warm, calm day, I was able to get 22 miles running it all the way down to 0 bars. I rode it fairly aggressively too, so there's likely even more miles available with conservative riding. Very good range for a board of this size. Aside from the bushings, the other issue I had was some air pockets that formed in the grip foam. They showed up after a few rides. Unfortunate there's so many on mine, but I'm gonna see what I can do to pop them. The rest of the construction seems solid though. At the time of this video, the price of the Gladius starts at $749. It's a little extra for the 105s, which I do recommend. The RGB underglow lights are roughly $15 and the front lights are $57. For what you are getting, I think this is pretty well priced before any promo codes. I would also like to add that OMW is pretty good when it comes to communicating over email. I would recommend sending them an email if you have any questions before or after buying. The Gladius overall is a unique experience. It's more fun than a street board thanks to that kicktail and is more comfy than a short board due to its extra length and flex. It's a very good in-between option. If you are fine with that it's not a true shortboard and you don't mind the power being on the more mild side, then the Gladius is for you. Like and subscribe for more real reviews. Thanks again for watching.